From the scorched earth in Woodside, South Australia, welcome to the GCN show.
Welcome to the GCN show.
Coming up this week, can going vegan actually make you a better cyclist?
We also have news from the Tour Down Under, proof that people like cycling more than driving,
and what could well be the biggest racing news story of the year, even though it's only January.
What's that one?
Come on, mate, don't be modest.
This week in the world of cycling, we learned that American champion Ruth Winder has come out of the winter with the best form. She took the overall title at the Santos Women's Tour Down Under following a stage win and a game of cat and mouse involving the intermediate time bonuses on the final day.
Speaking of someone else who is on top of their game, we also learned this week that Dan still got it. Yeah, finishing 10th in the 15th round of the Wessex Cyclocross League at the weekend. And not only that, also bunny hopping the barriers whilst doing it.
Come on, Dan. Come on.
As you said, Si, still got it.
Yeah.
Should we roll that again in slow-mo for the skills?
Was that real time?
Yeah, but it was at the top of a climb, the barriers.
Oh, okay. We probably don't need to watch it in slow-mo, I reckon.
Well, let's
That was
save
enough.
it for Extreme Corner, shall we?
Yeah, good idea.
We also learned this week that 73% of people who commute to work by car would rather be teleported instead. On the other hand, only 35% of cycle commuters would rather swap their bike for teleportation.
Suggesting, Dan?
Suggesting that most people actually really enjoy riding their bike to work and back. More on that very cool study coming later on in the show.
Yeah, after a very hot topic. So the recent Netflix sensation Game Changers portrays a really compelling case for living life on a plant-based diet, including the documentary featuring a load of high-profile athletes who feel that their diets have contributed really positively to their performance.
So, we thought we should probably find out a bit more from a cycling perspective. Given that almost all of the world's top professional riders are omnivores, could they, and by extension the rest of us, benefit?
Hi there.
Hiya.
Hi, could I get a flat white and a cortado, please?
Absolutely.
With oat milk.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, thanks. Should we go upstairs? Who better to ask than Nigel Mitchell, who is the author of GCN's Plant-Based Cyclist book and also a nutritionist. You've been working in professional cycling for what, 20 years, Nigel? Yeah, and most recently with EF for the last 5 seasons. Now, Nigel, I get the impression that you wrote Plant-Based Cyclist from a perspective more of how and why you can be a successful cyclist on a plant-based diet, and not with the sense that it will completely revolutionise your performance. But having watched Game Changers, and even with a cynical head on, it's quite compelling. So has the entire World Tour basically gone plant-based over this winter?
I mean, it's a really, really interesting point that you raise, and it's definitely had an effect in the World Tour cyclists.
Right.
Absolutely had it. Every single rider that I'm talking to is looking at reducing the amount of meat and animal foods within the diet.
I suppose the question then is, given that there are some claims about how, it could revolutionise performance and unlock hitherto untold levels of ability, if we saw a Grand Tour winner with a proven track record, like for example a Chris Froome or an Egan Bernal or a Tom Dumoulin, become plant-based, would you expect to see them improve or stay the same or, I don't know, get worse?
Yeah, I mean, I personally believe that we wouldn't see an improvement.
Okay.
We would only see an improvement if there is some deficiencies in their diet at the moment that they are not getting because they're not getting enough of these nutrients from plants.
Okay.
But for them to perform at the level they're performing and the quality of food that is delivered by World Tour teams, I would doubt very much that they're not getting enough of these nutrients. So I do not believe that there would be an increase in performance. If they can get everything right, I do not believe there would be a reduction in performance.
So why don't you think then that there could be a benefit to performance? Some of the things that were talked about was, I think like less inflammation and, like suppression of testosterone from, ingesting like milk, those kind of things, which, I think the science to back it up is limited to non-existent, but still, it's their claims that were made.
Yeah, I mean, and they make really strong, as you say, compelling claims. And I think that when we're looking at how people are tending to eat in the pro peloton at the races, part of you've got two aspects of it there. Is one, you're saying that having all of these plants will give you super nutrients, and then on the other side as well, you're saying that having these animal foods actually reduce the performance of the athlete. And really from that, from the real research evidence point of view, I'm struggling to actually see the real evidence that having some animal food in the amounts that like the pro riders are eating would have such a negative effect. And 100% I do believe that if you're deficient in these vegetables, in these plants, you will be lacking in some nutrients that would have a negative impact on performance. So an example that I'm quite interested in at the moment is around the eye health, looking at the macular part of the eye, which is really dependent on some micronutrients such as lutein and the carotenoids. And so if you're not having these type of vegetables, then that can affect the performance of your eye, which can affect performance overall.
So hang on a minute, Nigel, eating carrots can actually help you see in the dark?
Absolutely. How many rabbits do you see with glasses? But no, but being serious, these foods provide the nutrients that we need for the health of our eyes. And what I see working with professional riders is that when they're at the Grand Tours, they are getting a lot of these nutrients. So one of the things that's very popular in the professional peloton is a lot of vegetable juicing.
It's actually not too bad.
So, you know, the chefs can be getting through 10 kilos a day of vegetables for the juice, for the riders. There's always salad. And so the riders are getting, as a rule, a lot of really focused plant-based nutrition as it is.
The plant-based cyclist book has been really successful. It's been brilliant. Has that taken you by surprise a little bit?
It has a little bit, because you know this is really quite a niche book, and I believe we're now on our third print run, and it's only actually been out about 6 or 8 weeks. So it did take me a little bit by surprise, but actually the book. The idea for the book was really brought about by GCN viewers, so I suppose they have some ownership within that. So you know, the whole thing about it was we were doing videos about recovery, and all we were talking about was animal protein, and people were saying, well, what about vegetable protein? And so that made me go away, look at it, research it. So the viewers themselves really was the spark for the book. So we shouldn't be over surprised.
So it's fair to say then perhaps that there are some really compelling reasons to have a plant-based diet, but from a performance perspective, it's not gonna actually break down incredible barriers unless you've got a poor diet in the first place. But a poor diet is a poor diet whether you're eating plant-based or an omnivorous diet.
Absolutely, and I don't really like to use the word good and bad and poor, but I think that what we're talking about is what is appropriate for what people are wanting to do, and that there is that danger, and people always talk about it, of people just because somebody's on a plant-based diet doesn't make it healthy. So you know, you can switch from having, if all you do is you switch from having meat to having non-animal foods, but just more of it. It doesn't mean to say you're getting the nutrients in. We know that one of the things that's very popular is a vegan sausage roll, but that doesn't mean to say that is nutritionally beneficial. And the whole part of what I was trying to do with the book was to empower people to be able to make the most appropriate choices for themselves on both a theoretical and a practical level as well, with the recipes that's included in the book.
Cool. Nice. Thank you very much. And now we know, Dan, that whether you've got a plant-based diet or not, it won't actually affect that top 10 performance from the weekend.
Although I can improve that if I get myself a cross bike and time my warm-up better. Also, I was just at the end of a big training block too.
Also, you seem to be wearing a lot of clothes for a
Yes.
A 1 hour effort.
Slightly overdressed. Thought I'd be pro, take it casual.
Yeah. Now, someone who isn't overdressed is John Cannings, who once again has been the lucky one to travel out to Australia to film the season opener at the Tour Down Under. But unfortunately this year, there has been both a literal and metaphorical cloud hanging over the event.
We are, of course, talking about those horrible bushfires that have been affecting large swathes of Australia. And so a number of brands, actually, and riders have been using their profile to raise money for the affected areas. Amongst them is EF Education First, Lachlan Morton.
Now, Lockie, I don't need to explain to the viewers out there about what's been happening in Australia with the bushfires, because I think it's been publicised worldwide. But I understand you've been doing your own little bit of fundraising. Could you explain what exactly you've been doing with that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's like pretty dire situation for a lot of people. So I was trying to work out what I could do just to raise some money. So I just did a few bunch rides in and around Sydney. Just when anyone who raised over $500, I went and rode with them. Which for me it's easy because I'd be out riding anyway, So it's like this. It's pretty small thing I could do compared to what a lot of people are having to do, but it was great. We could raise some money, ride bikes, so it was nice to see the cycling community in the Sydney area sort of come together, and we got out and rode and raised a bunch of money, so it's cool.
Before we finish with the Tour Down Under, a quick reminder, you can watch the Women's Santos Tour Down Under as live on the GCN Racing YouTube channel, where you'll also be able to get live coverage of the men's race, all 6 stages, or as live if you miss it at the time.
Yeah, that's right. Very good, actually, for whetting the appetite for what will be undoubtedly one of the biggest events in the cycling calendar this year, Ollie's hour record attempt. It's now less than a month away. He's getting nervous, isn't he?
I'm not surprised.
Anyway, let's have our weekly update.
Alright guys, I'm just down at Newport Velodrome doing a bit of training, but I thought I'd give you a quick bike check and an update on my bike that I'm going to be doing the hour record on. So this is it, but it's not finished. I know it looks very fast as it is, but we're going to make it even faster. So it's a BMC track machine, which is the same frame that Rowan Dennis used, but at the front, at the moment, I've got this Mavic 5-spoke in. We're going to swap that for a disc wheel, which has lower drag and will be faster. We've also got the cockpit at the front. This is kind of stock from Aero Coach at the moment, but we're going to make a custom moulded one that's specific to me, and that will make the front end more aerodynamic as well. And then the chain rings, at the moment, it's got a 52-14, which is the same ratio that Eddie Merckx used, but we're going to put a bigger chain ring on there that's solid. This is going to be a bit more aerodynamic, and also it puts the chain through a less tight angle, so there's less friction in the drivetrain. Also got my nice Aero Speed Play pedals on. They're staying on there. But yeah, whew. I mean, she's fast as she is now, so with the modifications we've got planned, whew, it's basically going to pedal itself. Hopefully.
It is now time for your weekly GCN Inspiration, where you submit your inspirational cycling photos or videos using the GCN app. 3 prizes as ever, those prizes this week being, Si, 3rd place.
Casquette?
Yep, 2nd place.
Jersey?
First place.
Is another jersey with a
An
matching
underbit.
base layer.
Great, so without further
Or
ado...
just something you can wear to the gym.
Yeah, or to the Christmas
Maybe
party.
you could wear it to the gym, but yeah.
Right, in 3rd place then, and therefore winning the casket, it is Dorin Mantwi. 0 degrees, no snow, yay.
Yay! I like that. That is an absolutely cracking photo.
We had some good weather at the weekend here in the UK.
We did. It looked even nicer than that, but that's a banger of a photo. Right, so there we go. A casquette winging its way to you. 2nd place was this from Dish Soap, The Loop from Tucson, Arizona. Now that is inspirational at the moment, Dan, because one day soon, even riding in the United Kingdom will look like that. Maybe not this month, maybe not next month, probably not the month after that or after that, but at some point this year we'll get a day.
Was that a designated bike path? Because if it is, I'm not sure anywhere near me is going to look like that anytime soon.
Yeah, that's a good point.
If that's surely too narrow for American cars. Meanwhile, the winner, and therefore receiving the fan kit jersey and base layer, is A.G. Jones. After a bike ride on the Cornish coast, my 9-year-old son and I decided to head for the beach in January to see the sunset. Don't worry, he turned around before he reached the sea. What an epic shot that is.
That is amazing, isn't it?
Once again, showing that we are suckers for sunrises and sunsets.
That's it. And there we are banging on about the weather in Tucson, Arizona, and actually that is in the United Kingdom. Yeah. So there we go. Fantastic.
Well-deserved winner this week. Don't forget to get involved by uploading your photos and videos to the app. We've got an honourable mention though this week, haven't we?
We do. Not often we get an honourable mention.
No, that honourable mention goes to, let's just find it now, Geraint. I love watching my shadow when I cycle sometimes, and even though the shadow is behind the rider here, I like the way it stretches out behind him or her.
I like that as well, Dan. That is a very nice sketch.
It is, yeah. No prizes for sketches though, unfortunately, but if it's good enough, you might get an honourable mention.
Yeah, that's it. Now, by the way, just to clarify, when we say Geraint, it's not Geraint Thomas, unfortunately, and we know this because he's also written that he rides a Mojo as opposed to a Pinarello F12. So that was a bit of a disappointment, wasn't it? But still, thanks for sending it in.
It's now time for cycling shorts.
Cycling shorts now, and we're going to start with that teleportation study. Two academics from Utah State University, Prasanna Humagain and Patrick Singleton, have looked in to perceptions of travel time and how much people enjoy their chosen method of travel based on a large cross-section of commuters in Portland, Oregon.
Basically, if you just want to get to your destination, you would choose teleportation.
Yeah, you would.
Whereas if you actually quite like that journey, teleportation would be rubbish. So it's quite interesting to note that a lot of walkers and cyclists tend to favour the commute. In fact, more walkers even than cyclists.
Yeah. Although, Dan, it's either that they like the commute, or they're just technophobic, literally scared of teleportation, because maybe your ear would end up in like your forehead when you got to work.
They actually asked that question in the study, and only 9% of people said that they were afraid of the technology. Yeah, which is quite a similar percentage, I think, to disc brakes versus rim brakes.
Yeah.
On the other hand, 17% of the people simply didn't seem to get the survey, did they?
No.
Because they said that teleportation is impossible.
Yeah. I definitely wouldn't teleport. I'd still rather ride to work, I think, most days. Get a lot fitter riding compared to teleportation.
I don't really see the point in answering the question.
Why not?
Teleportation's impossible.
Well, yeah, there we go. Right, now one of our favourite professional cyclists in recent times, Ian Boswell, had a horrific crash during Tirreno Adriatico last year, suffering from a concussion that took an awful long time to recover from. So much so, in fact, that he has had to retire from pro road racing.
He has, but he's now about to embark in gravel racing.
Oh yeah.
He announced this news actually in the first episode of what looks like it's going to be a very cool series of videos.
Now, whilst we're talking about gravel, clearly it is the latest hot topic in cycling. So much so, in fact, that according to an article on Velo News, national governing body USA Cycling have been meeting with gravel race organisers to see if they can get involved.
I'm not sure about you, Si, but my take from that article was that the answer was no.
Yeah, pretty much.
There's another interesting one actually on road.cc about a very exciting meeting between the UCI and the organisers and founders of Leroyka about a potential gravel series.
That's right. Now, initially, it sounds really promising, doesn't it, Dan? Longer races, potentially through the night, no race radios, no team cars, new and unknown roads. But then, it all starts to get a bit weird.
So much so, in fact, that we had to check the original Italian article to make sure that it wasn't a hoax. So, no head units, no climbing gears.
Again, a bit pointless.
And a ban on any riders with less than 6% body fat, so there's nobody there that looks so unhealthy, it's scary.
I don't get that.
Yeah, count me out, that would.
Yeah. Right, now we shall finish cycling shorts with this story that we found on Ciclismo a Fondo about Colombian rider Julian Quintero, who was racing the Tour of Huangzhou last year when a local rider riding for a small Chinese team rode up alongside him in the peloton and said, "Hello, Dad."
And apparently, he is indeed his son, a son that he never knew existed until very recently, and the result of what we shall say was a short-term relationship at a training camp 18 years ago.
Now, Quintero, fair play to him, seems really quite pleased with this, and he has said that he's absolutely going to play a part in his son's life now he knows about him.
Fair play. Yeah. Although he must be petrified of going out to other former training camp destinations, mustn't he? Worried what he's going to find.
Well, yeah. Fortunately, Dan, or unfortunately at the time, none of my training camps were like that, so I can travel around the world without fear.
It is now time for hack /Bodge of the week. If you'd like to get involved in this segment, all you need to do is upload your hacks and bodges, either in video or photo format, to the GCN app. The first one this week comes in from Brent Baker. I ride here in Canada year round and I despise riding with gloves.
What? That sounds mad.
I know, so I made these pogies from an old 7mm wetsuit. Haven't had cold hands since, nor have I had to use gloves.
Wow. Well, Dan, that does sound like a hack, doesn't it?
It sounds like a hack to me, but I don't mind using gloves.
No, I don't either. But although actually, you know, if there was an option of not using gloves, I'd take it. Leave it to a Canadian to do that. You know, I read an article about like the biggest snowfall in 24 hours or something in Canada. It was like 80 centimetres of snow.
I saw a picture of somebody that opened their door just to a wall of snow.
Yeah.
I tell you what, though, that looks like proper winter there, doesn't it? Not like those videos that we do where we try to tell people how to dress for winter.
After all, skin's waterproof. It might be waterproof. It's not that warm.
Right there, next time we'll have some pogies. Right, next up, we've got this one sent in from Pavel Bob. Spotted this bike in Shanghai. Now, I know what you're thinking, that looks pretty rude. The thing that we're wondering is why there's a plastic bag over the rear derailleur.
I mean, those tri-spokes look quite epic, don't they? They're
Gold
like
mine.
helicopter blades there. But
Yeah.
yes, please answer the question in the comment section down below if you've got an answer to that, because we have no idea.
No, but now I kind of think that maybe I do need to put a plastic bag around my rear mech when I leave my bike at the station.
Yeah, prevent rust. Right, moving on, we
Well, there you
have this from Daniel Parner. Thief Protection 2.0. This is amazing. I can't quite figure out how the saddles come out and this bar that goes on the other side of the bar that he's locked it up to then slips back into the seat post because you still need a down tube. More questions for our viewers to answer at home.
Absolutely. Hopefully we've got some crack engineers working on this as we speak, Dan, because, well, apart from looking terrifying, it would be effective thief protection, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, I'm saying hack for that before I know the answer to how. In fact, I'm not sure we said hack or bodge for the previous one. Bodge for the previous one before that, and we said hack for the first one.
Yeah.
Okay, right, moving on.
Okay, next up we've got this from Dan. Born to be wild, he says. And yeah, that does look like quite a cool, easy rider, doesn't it?
Dan had to use that username because I already had Dan. Right, and we had this one come in from B Commuter. Here's a puzzle for you. When is adding weight to a bike and using tape and zip ties not a bodge? Answer. Oh, I've got an answer ready for this one. When you need to balance your bike with the child seat on the back so you can commute to school every day, but your front rack still hasn't been delivered. Two things Si hates, but will he let it go for the kids?
Well, no, because, like, bodging something onto your bike because you haven't taken delivery of the part that you need, I mean, that's a bodge, isn't it? Not a hack.
Yeah.
Anyway, just to clarify zip ties, like, a zip tie per se, I don't have a problem with. What I have a problem with is a zip tie being essential to your bike. Like when manufacturers are like, oh, we'll just stick it to the frame with a zip tie. No one will mind. That's what I don't like. Anyway, this last...
Thanks for the clarification.
That's all right, mate. This one from LeeBoy180. Dan, this is frankly terrifying. I was on a cycling holiday in France when I came across a cafe which sold these great stained glass-filled bike components. Now, admittedly, it does look great, but look at that. Disc brakes are so dangerous, that rotor has been embedded in a solid piece of rock. That looks like some kind of granite, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. What chance does my calf muscles stand if it goes through rock?
Well,
like
they're not chiseled from granite anymore, are they, Dan?
Then we had this one sent in by Dino. Solve the issue of where to stick the front wheel when using a suction cup bike rack. I have 12mm through bolt, so a C-sucker nog won't do the job.
There we go. Hack. Yeah, and not a zip tie in sight. So yeah, I'm thinking that is a pretty good hack there.
Right, that's all for this week's hacks and bodges, but we need your help because over on the GCN app, we've already got next week's hacks and bodges for you to vote on. I know that loads of you get frustrated whether we deem things a hack or a bodge.
And get things completely wrong.
So now's your chance to show us that we are wrong, and we'll be reading out the answers and the votes next week.
Yeah, if you want to find the GCN show in the app, or in fact, any of our weekly shows, when you get to the main page, you can scroll along that little bar at the top until you get to shows, and when you click on there, you can find the GCN show, and underneath it will be all the posts from this week and all the posts from next week as well.
Also, if you go to Extreme Corner, you'll find me bunny hopping over some barriers in a cyclocross race.
It's like a dusty corner of the app with cobwebs and stuff like that. And tumbleweed rolling across. It's time now for Caption Competition, that point in the show where you get a chance to win a much coveted GCN Elite water bottle. All you got to do is write a caption to a photo that we're about to give you. As ever, we're going to start with the results from last week. Dan, you weren't here, but I think I filled your shoes admirably, actually. No pun intended there. Yeah, can I tell you what my caption was?
Yeah, go on.
A shoe!
It's 2 shoes, not a shoe. I mean, apart from that would have been absolutely genius. I take my hat off to you, but not factually correct. But we did have a genius one come in from Colin Forsyth, who is this week's winner of the Elite water bottle. His caption is, Fabio does a little soul searching to figure out how to reduce his carbon footprint.
I've got to hand it to him. That is genius. That is absolutely genius. Probably top 5 captions of all time, I think.
I reckon so. Out of 367 shows. Don't know if we always had the caption photo at the beginning, though, did we? Anyway,
no, not sure.
Moving on. This week's photo comes from the Tour Down Under press conference with Rowan Dennis, Richie Port, and Mads Pedersen, the world champion. We shall get you started. Richie Port unhappy about having to get fake tan after losing commuter challenge. He does it remarkably similar to you just before Christmas.
He does, doesn't he? Yeah.
Looks lean though. Watch out for Richie Port at the Tour Down Under.
Super lean.
Could the King of Willunga win the overall standings this year?
Well, I don't know.
We shall shortly be informing you as to what's coming up on GCN over the next week, but before we do, as ever, a few of our favourite comments from the previous 7 days, starting with this one underneath James and Mark's bike packing in Patagonia video.
That was good.
Aditya Shetty. That awkward high five or side hug moment between James and Pablo at 11:42 is me every time I meet someone new on a ride. Did look quite awkward, didn't it?
Did. Just, what was James thinking? You don't hug like people you've never met before.
James hugs everybody. I mean, he knows me, it's still awkward.
Well, I've got a no-hug policy, even with poor old James. Just like, no.
Yeah, only on special occasions.
Yeah, that is true.
Not
Sometimes
every
on
blooming
special
morning.
occasions. No, exactly. Anyway, right, next up, we got this one from underneath. Should cyclists go to the gym? Richard Brab say, I love the way their legs look buff and their arms look like a piece of wet celery. And then Noma, one look at Simon and GCN answers their own question, yes. Which, yeah, fair enough. You know, sometimes wet celery is really good for performance.
Yeah, well, John Canning's also commented on that very same video saying, makes me want to go and pump some iron. And looking at his legs outside those Slazenger shorts, I think maybe he's well advised to do so. Not that I can talk, obviously.
Yeah, he's probably also advised to go to Richie Port's tanning salon, isn't he? Yeah, again, just to fit in with the locals.
Underneath, how to use nutrition to enhance your training. There were a lot of very similar comments under this video, weren't there? But one of them that we picked out was from Daniel Ellis. I've been watching GCN videos for nearly 7 years now, and I don't think I've seen any new presenter to be so natural so quickly as Connor and Manon. I mean, it's taken Si and Dan years to get good at it. There's a compliment in there somewhere, Si.
There is,
implying that we're good at it now. But I would agree with you, Daniel. They were absolutely fantastic on their very first video. We kept saying it's much harder than it looks, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
slightly arrogantly.
And now, now we've been rumbled.
We feel slightly foolish.
Yeah, fortunately for everyone out there, Connor and Manon are going to be cropping up in videos regularly on the channel from now. So it's great, isn't it?
It is, yes. Right, coming up on the channel over the next week, starting on Wednesday, where we're going to show you how to write your own training plan. Might not be quite as difficult as you think. On Thursday, we're going to go through, yes, worst things to say to a pro cyclist. Oh, you look healthy. It's amongst them. No one said that to Richie Port recently. Friday, packing for your next adventure ride.
That's right. And then on Saturday, this was frankly terrifying, how to manage your weight like a pro cyclist. EF Education First Nutritionist Nigel Mitchell came in and put me through my paces, what a new recruit to a World Tour team would go through. Then on Sunday, we've got a day in the life of a pro cyclist at a training camp. Ollie was fortunate enough to go and see AG2R and spend the day with Oliver Nason. I'm not sure whether Nason knew about that before Ollie arrived, but anyway, he did let him hang out.
Yeah, I bet Ollie dropped him all with all the training he's been doing for that hour record.
Well, yeah, I bet he did, yeah.
Then on Monday, of course, it's the Racing News Show over on GCN Racing. Tuesday, we're back in the set here for the GCN show. But don't forget, live coverage of the Tour Down Under, or you can watch it as live if you're asleep. As it's almost the end of the show, it's time for Extreme Corner, which this week, of course, I'm very excited about because it's now me bunny hopping barrows in slow-mo.
Come on, man. Come on.
So that's probably all we've got time for of that clip, haven't we? It's going to take ages if we watch it in slow-mo. Right, thank you very much for watching the GCN show this week. As ever, of course, please give us a like and also share this video.
And if you would like to watch some more videos, if you haven't already seen this next one, you've got to watch it. It's Mark Beaumont and Hank over in Patagonia bike packing. Looks fantastic, and you can find it just down here.